In this part, I want to analyze the campaign and go over the level design, music, as well as story beats. I felt it best to combine these elements in this section since context is very important for each of them. But before we even start the game, we have to see what is essentially an action figure of the Slayer, or a demon on the main menu. I promise this is relevant, bear with me. The reason you're seeing this is because there is now a battle pass in Doom, because of course there is. I'm not saying battle passes are bad in general, but this gives me a weird impression. Is the game not good enough for me to just enjoy it for what it is? You need to give me FOMO-based rewards or I wouldn't have reason to play it? I might be being a bit overdramatic here, but I think when I launched this game for the first time, I understood why some people complain about battle passes. Doom, to a small degree, is now a disposable product, to be sold and forgotten. It's not a work of art to be remembered on merit. I'm not done yet though. I fully believe this battle pass is the reason the devs put third-person cutscenes in this game. Slayer skins just wouldn't have any value for single-player exclusive players, if they couldn't see them every once in a while. There was an elegance and immersion to presenting everything in first person in Doom 4. Now, these cutscenes should have been skippable, and lo and behold, they are now. But I preferred how unimportant those little moments were, as far as the main character goes. He rarely did anything by himself, mostly you just looked at things happening and maybe reacting to them. Control was sometimes wrought from you, but at least you never left the shoes of the Slayer, so I lament this change a little. Now, Hugo said before release that there would be no microtransactions at launch in Doom Eternal. They're selling you a complete, full-priced product. Can you guess what they did a few months after release? Yep. Let's recap. They added a battle pass to sell those skins back again, and to add value to those skins, they had to make third-person cutscenes in this game. They sacrificed some artistic vision for some of that cash money. I wonder what this implies in light of that tweet. Is the game an incomplete product now? Feels quite hypocritical to me. While we're on the topic of cutscenes, I feel they did take a nosedive in other ways, with the Slayer now doing something in almost every cutscene. All important story beats are inside of them. H-Bomber Guy, in his great video on Deus Ex Human Revolution, criticized how, in that game, all the important story decisions were being made and cool moments experienced by Cutscene Jensen. This left the more mundane portions up for the actual gameplay sections for the player to perform. The result is that this level structure feels like your goal is to transport the main character between cutscenes, where the actual progression is happening. To some slight degree, this is also a problem with Doom 4. But there hardly were any cutscenes in the middle of levels, and those that were usually just involved completing some mundane task as part of your objective. Again, let me underline that I think it's a problem how many important events and decisions are now made in cutscenes. It's like some writers wanted to give a ton of flair and spectacle for the players, but only in the video portions. It's like they wished to be making a film instead of a game. In Doom 4, they felt more modest and tasteful, in my opinion. Anyway, let me actually start talking about the game. The cutscene starts with another opening monologue from some figure that we actually know the name of this time. We see the ruined Earth and hear some radio transmissions. I feel these do a good job at conveying how dire the situation is. And now we see the Fortress of Doom. What, you don't know what that is? You've never heard of the Fortress of Doom? You fucking dolt. We see the Slayer preparing for some excursion, and the music gets all badass, and frankly it pumps me up every time. Vega effectively gives us the first major goal of the game. Find and eliminate 3 Hell Priests. Surely this will solve everything. This goal feels mundane and contrived. The demons are such a chaotic force that I'm supposed to believe killing some lanky old guys will just immediately remove their contribution to the corruption? Anyway, we teleport to some unspecified demonic structure. You get the tutorial on basic combat, movement, and secret hunting. And here's one of my problems with the secret design in this game. With these interactive elements of the environment, there's not many secrets that involve solving some puzzle, or finding an ingenious usage of platforming elements. Most of these secrets are now of the LEGO games kind. You just gotta spot something to interact with, and interact with these things until you get a reward. The puzzle practically solves itself. After the first arena fight, a cutscene will play of the Slayer finding some guy dressed in fancy clothing, so you know he's important. He exclaims his soul is guarded, just so that the audience knows he is normally immortal or something. Then the Slayer pulls up this fucking coin thing, which dissolves, and yeah, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Something is missing from the story. At the end of Doom 4, the demonic invasion of Mars was thwarted. Samuel Hayden intended to keep meddling with Argent Energy, and the Slayer was put into some kind of stasis. What happened between the two games? Your guess is as good as mine. How did Doom Guy get the Fortress of Doom? The stars have a better chance of telling you than the developers. However, we know what is happening in this cutscene. These Hell Priests are effectively immortal unless these weird coins are consumed. Each of these priests has a guardian who protects this coin. Cool concept, to be honest, if a little contrived. So, off-screen, the Slayer has defeated the guardian of this specific Hell Priest. It's clear they were planning something, anything, to fill out the gap, but it ended up not happening. So, as it stands, the story is just missing its very head. Great start. Anyway, some more level happens, and we intrude on this Zoom call between the remaining two priests and the con maker. Now, why did Doom Guy even do that? Frankly, I can't tell you. He didn't achieve anything in this cutscene, just communicated his intentions to his enemies, which seems like a tactically silly move. How did that Sun Tzu quote go again? All warfare is based? Feels like I'm forgetting something, but whatever. It feels like the only goal of this cutscene is to set up the main villain of this game, the creepy robotic tentacled lady with a god complex. Vega opens up a portal to leave right behind our backs here, which creates another contrivance. If he can create portals where he wants essentially at will, then it makes the middle part of the level feel unnecessary. I do like the aesthetics of this level. I must say, seeing a completely ruined and crumbling Earth was quite high on my list of wishes for Doom Eternal. The only thing that really feels a bit off is how we're supposed to be in one of the hearts of corruption. We literally came here to kill one of the three Hell Priests. So why then are we faced with the weakest opposition possible? The answer is it's the first level. Still, feels like the demons aren't very fearsome at this stage. It's a bit of a problem, in my view, to both new Doom games. In Doom 1, 2, and even 3, the environment followed a more gradual progression. Take the first game as an example. Episode 1 is all human-built tech base. Episode 2 is an evolution of tech base with surreal and hellish elements. The final episode involves you actually traversing the surface and fortresses of Hell. The difficulty reflects this shift in tone. Hell is often the climax both in terms of stakes, but also challenge. Doom 3 is kind of the odd one out. The only time you go to actual Hell is in the middle of the game. Had this segment been cut out, the progression would follow a similar path as the previous two games. In Doom 4 and Eternal, Hell is no longer something to fear. It's just another environment for you to jump between, like any other. The music here is of a similar mold to the first level music in the previous game. They have some aggressive sounds, but almost feel like the first few seconds of a metal track. Except it just plays over and over again. It seems like an appropriate idea, but these levels last far longer than songs in general, and it feels a bit repetitive. Furthermore, I also found it a bit annoying how it constantly sounds like it's building towards something that just never comes. There are several strings that sound like they belong right before an intense chorus or bridge, but never reach a satisfying payoff. This might also be the best moment to point out how I was actually pretty disappointed in Doom Eternal's soundtrack in general. It's very good, don't get me wrong, but after the insanity that was Doom 4's music, this one rings kind of hollow and soulless in comparison. Mick Gordon is a musical genius, but it feels like half the combat tracks in this game don't really have an idea or personality behind them, and the other half feels like what the composer would turn a generic sounding riff into, making it sound as good as possible. Remember Transistor Fist? The most forgettable track from Doom 4 in my view. It just doesn't feel like there's any deliberation or feeling behind it. Well, that's kind of what the entirety of Doom Eternal's soundtrack feels like to me. The music in Hell on Earth is of the first variety. These tones and riffs just don't really feel like anything, they almost sound random. After this level, we're taken to the Fortress of Doom again. It's a sort of hub where we return to between some of the levels. We don't get to see much of it now, so I'll return to discussing it later. Frankly, it almost makes me wonder why we even bothered coming here. The next level is Exultia. Vega needs a celestial locator to find the next Hell Priest, for some reason. And for some reason, it can be found here. This part of the level is a fantasy-themed ruined city, with no signs of demonic corruption. The civilization here was a humanoid race, which I will be calling Argenta. It's not clear whether this is supposed to be a planet in our universe or an entirely separate plane of existence. But part of it has been almost torn out by Hell, as we see another of their cities back in Doom 4, Argent Dunur. I think it's a good time to mention how linear many of these levels are. There's minimal backtracking or choosing which path to go down. The spaces don't often come back on themselves or overlap in compact and clever ways. Instead, they're here to look grand and epic, and funnel the player between arenas. Anyway, once we reach this throne room, we meet King Novik, who reveals himself to be the voice from the intro. He doesn't want Doomguy taking this celestial locator, but doesn't really do anything to stop him. He echoes the Conmaker's sentiment, and it becomes clear that the Sentinels of Argenta were allied to the Makers. The Night Sentinels are a faction we hear of in Doom 4 and even get to see their spirits. Doomguy held some position of authority over them and King Novik over him. Secretly, the priests now on Earth have allied themselves with the Makers, and later, by extension, with Hell itself. This caused a civil war in the Argenta civilization, and Novik seems to be taking the side of the Hell Priests. The level isn't over yet. We take this portal to go to Hell? It's not explained why. We fight our way through some arenas and eventually reach the Betrayer. He was another character mentioned back in Doom 4, who sold out the Argenta people, essentially, in return for his dead son. This line, combined with a sentence from the Codex back from Doom 4, borderline confirmed his son was brought back as the icon of sin. If you're confused, don't worry, it doesn't get better. Anyway, what wasn't really explained is that we came here because the Betrayer must activate the device or something. I don't know why we needed him specifically, other than to set up his son's return later. We fight some more before a portal randomly opens and takes us back to the hub. Story-wise, there's a few things here that don't make sense. Specifically, a few lines seem to exist only to sound cool and not to make any sense. King Novik says,
"What you interfere with now is bigger than you can imagine."
Is it though? Doomguy knows about the existence of the Makers. She told him she wants Hell to produce ardent energy for her. He knows all this. What about this is too big to imagine? I literally imagined this before the game was even out. My first thought when I found out the Makers are antagonists in this game was, I hope this scheme ends up being a bit more sophisticated than just heaven needs Hell energy. And the Betrayer's line here.
Saving your people will not bring you peace, only make the burden you carry worse.
Why? How would that work? Doomguy has space PTSD. He needs to save people. How would saving them be a problem for him? This level highlights how many gimmicks have to be put in between arenas to make for any pacing. Specifically, platforming, since arenas are highly scripted encounters, and secrets are more about finding a specific location than solving a puzzle or anything environmental. They had to fill in the space with something. So they went with just unapologetically putting some figurative and almost literal hoops for you to jump through. It's not creative, it's not challenging, it's barely more engaging than some shitty hacking minigame. In Doom 3, for example, pacing was done in a more natural manner. The environment had more to find. There were supplies scattered around, which could help you in later fights. datapads with text messages and audio logs, which may contain passcodes to supply closets or unlock entirely new locations. Computers with more of the same. The environment was a bit more than just an arena or a corridor between the two. The purple sludge is a big offender. It slows you down a lot and makes you unable to jump or dash. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. It's annoying and tedious. At least, most of these sections can be skipped with some creative platforming. But it says ill of a mechanic if the most fun way to engage with it is to find ways to circumvent it. The music in this level is catchy, but it fits the generic riff with tons of makeup on it mold. This might be a good point to discuss how infatuated the game is with random, boring cutscenes or other unskippable animations. In the level we've just completed, we had to find 3 power cores to activate weapons on these mechs, such that we can progress further. Each of these has this weirdly long animation of just picking it up. Was this really necessary? It doesn't show anything important. If the object disappeared when we pressed interact, it would convey the same thing. Almost all collectibles also have one. At least it shows what we've just found, but a little icon on the corner of the screen would have been enough too. We can now access the rest of the fortress, and there's many rooms with goodies in them, which are locked away. To open the doors, we must spend 2 sentinel batteries for each. And of course, every single sentinel battery has this long and mundane animation of putting it inside the receptacle. The pickup animations can be skipped by swapping a weapon right before walking over the secret. But there's a small chance this will lock you in this weaponless state, where you cannot fire any guns. Some of the cutscenes are unnecessarily indulgent as well. This one, from the first level of the second DLC, just depicts you slowly walking forward, slowly lighting this torch, and slowly walk again to set this thing alight. This sequence lasts about 40 seconds. Then there's this sequence that just shows Doomguy slowly walking again, seeing this dragon thing, getting on it, flying through some clouds, and settling down. This one lasts a whopping 90 seconds and shows nothing interesting. Just 5 seconds of walking and then a fade to black would have changed nothing to the context this scene gives. Cultist Base is up next, and it's a tough one. It introduces mecha zombies, mancubi, and whiplashes. This pit fight is probably the hardest arena in the game to do on an Ultra Nightmare run, and it feels a bit cheap. If you can hit the cue balls just right, the fight will be over no problem, but missing even one of these shots might lead to your death, because of how little room there is. The punishment is a bit too severe. This level is a bit more non-linear than others, as you do come back and retread several of these areas. However, many of the rooms are either underground or separated by mountains. Therefore, there's no real feeling of interconnectivity, as you can't see other parts of the level. This little sequence where you pilot a revenant has only been put here to promote battle mode, the multiplayer component, so it feels very filler. I think a significant part of the level feels like filler. It's just a little too long, in my opinion. Some of these random corridors or jumping sequences could have been done away with, as they don't feel very memorable. I do like this techno-cultist aesthetic. We're looking for the second Hell Priest, and he's built this citadel to protect him. The music in this level is quite unique and one of the better tracks in the game. It can get quite intense, and there's a cool synthy vibe to some strings. The target's not here though. We're going to Doom Hunter Base next. It's a totally different facility, I swear on me pinky. It starts with a brief arena fight on this jet train thing. When it's over, we're supposed to break this chain, which I guess disconnects the previous carriages. And then we actually arrive? I don't know what's happening here, or why breaking this chain was necessary. Anyway, this level is pretty sweet as well. There's only one major arena fight near the start, and the rest is linear exploration. What I don't like is how the game sometimes plays these unskippable cutscenes showing something really obvious happening. Like how here, we absolutely positively need to watch these coffins rise up into the air for a solid 5 or so seconds. I get there's probably a reason for this, but if you need to show me precisely where I need to go for your level to work, then you've made a shitty level. I'm talking about just this section here in the context of level design, and not the entire level in general. However, I find it difficult to believe anyone was actually struggling here. I think it's more of a contingency on id's part. They'd rather make sure not a single soul would be left behind. This game must be palatable to everyone. This game also relies far more on a crutch back from Doom 4, the green lights. If a level designer couldn't figure out how to lead you to the next area, they put down a bunch of breadcrumbs for you to follow. At least they make sense in the Hell levels, since the expeditions were using them to mark their path. But in other sections, it feels really gamey and artificial. The entire purpose of this facility is to dig up these ancient creatures, augment them with machine, and reanimate to serve as guardians for the Hell Priest. We witness almost all of the process as we traverse the level, so there's plenty of build-up. I feel this level is a bit too long as well. This second laser corridor section could have been cut out with little loss, or maybe even both. The ambient music here is one of my favorite in the game. It's rhythmic and foreboding. Then we get to the boss fight itself. The cutscene is, as usual, self-masturbatory and overly dramatic. And then, a tutorial prompt, telling you to shoot the bastard. For by far the simplest boss in the game. If you need a tutorial prompt for every boss you encounter, then you should be designing more intuitive bosses. Similarly to the point on level design, I think it's just a contingency more than an actual necessary measure. The boss is a fairly standard ranged tank. There's not much to say. He moves fairly fast, but isn't really trying to home in on you. He's got variations on projectiles, and that's most of his toolkit. You're supposed to shoot his sled to deal damage initially, as the body is protected by an energy shield. When it reaches, the Doom Hunter will detach and start flying around autonomously, without the shield. This boss has a vulnerability to Blood Punch. The energy shield can also be destroyed with a plasma rifle, though it stays off for a very short period, so it's not a useful tactic. When you kill him, a hole in the ground opens for you to leap down and...
We are not done yet.
It's a 2v1 now. This arena is far bigger, with a lot of cover to make the fight more feasible. There's even more lesser demons now too, with prowlers and carcasses joining the fray. This boss fight is probably my favorite in the game, as it feels like a much tougher take on the standard gameplay loop. Manage your resources, keep your distance, and flee when necessary. The fight can be long, but you always just need to find an opening to attack. The music in Phase 2 might also be my favorite track in the game, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because even this one is not as remarkable as some tracks from Doom 4. It feels both unique and thematic, but isn't quite as intense as it could have been. Maybe this is a good point to bring this up, but Mick Gordon's boss themes might be his weakest work. They usually sound good and feel thematically appropriate, but they just don't have the intensity and ferocity some other composers manage. They actually often feel less exciting than the music in the actual preceding level. For instance, this is how Mick Gordon makes his final boss themes. And this is how Andrew Hulshult does. By defeating the Guardians, we obtain the necessary token to permanently kill the priest, and leave back for the fortress. If only Vega knew where to set the portal, this whole escapade would have taken 10 minutes. Is it a good time to talk about the juvenile tone and slapstick humor in this game? Probably. I'm just not a fan. It feels so Marvel-y. It's like they're trying so hard to emulate generic blockbuster films, or fit in with some specific group of nerds in quotation marks. In the tutorial, you're borderline forced to do this super funny bonk glory kill. We showed it off at QuakeCon and everybody laughed because it's funny. So you have to do it now so you know exactly what you're getting into. Headshot kills on fodder make this super funny popping sound effect. Doomguy has a man cave, he's totally a nerd, just like you guys. He's got a sick triple screen setup, and he records his favorite kills. He reads comic books. Those are nerdy, right? Many of these collectibles you find are these fucking toy figurines of the demons. Collect them all, buy more plastic shit, and consume our useless product. I've got a confession to make. Back when Doom 4 had released, I was a bit confused by the toy collectibles. They felt weird and out of place. I couldn't figure out why they were there. I'm sorry to say, but my eyes have been opened. Since then, I've made the realization that people actually buy and collect this shit. The reason Doom 4 and Eternal have plastic toys in them is because some people enjoy them. That's the crowds these games are aimed at. The game is, to a small extent, not an artistic expression, but plastic disposable shovelware product. And the saddest thing is, it's kind of trying to be, to fit in with the hip and cool nerds. Moving on, the next level is Super Gornest. The only reason we're here is because this thing just so happened to be kind of threatening at this particular moment in time. This little quest makes absolutely no inroads on our main objective, and barely makes any sense. I mean, the demons are everywhere anyway. Wouldn't neutralizing the Hell Priests also eliminate the threat this Super Gornest is posing? Anyway, the level takes place in another similar-looking cityscape, occupied by this huge flesh organism. Having a Gornest be an entire level feels like a logical escalation of this theme from the previous game. The city is torn apart and lava is flowing inside the new canyons. This is exactly the kind of visual I was hoping to see when we found out Doom Eternal was going to have a Hell on Earth setting. The arena fights really start coming into their own at this point. There's a certain feeling that Doom 4 has captured, and it's when a challenging arena just never knows when to end. It keeps going and going and going until you either get suffocated under the pressure, or come out the other side, bruised, battered, and exhausted. Doom Eternal manages to recapture and expand on this feeling. If you're itching for more such challenging movement shooters, Metal Hellsinger on the hardest setting is of a similar vibe. The buff totem gets introduced in this level, and, like mentioned previously, I'm not a fan of how the arena makes you fight away first, before letting you destroy it. However, it's cool how you have to search for it down the teleporters. The music here is one of the better tracks. It's snappy, intense, and imaginative. When we're back, Vega finally has an idea on what to do next. We're going to grab Samuel Hayden, since he certainly knows where the last Hell Priest is, for some reason. Unfortunately, the teleporter fails us again. We aren't transported right to where old Uncle Sam is, but outside this complex, and the road ahead is blocked by these tentacles. Fortunately, there is one turret for each tentacle, which can blow off this one part. So let's recap what we're doing. We're now traversing this area such that we can destroy these tentacles with stationary turrets, such that we can get inside to get Samuel Hayden, such that he can tell us where the last Hell Priest is, such that we can reach him, kill him, and stop the demonic invasion. Mother of all fetch quests, Jesus Christ. It's kind of emblematic of the whole game. Like I said, we are just a vehicle for cutscene Doomguy to get between cutscenes, where he can do the important stuff. And that's a lame way of telling a story. This level is actually pretty cool. The demons are everywhere. Everything is falling apart and they're crawling the place, breaking through walls and windows to get to you. There's a few arenas which feel similarly intense as in the previous level, but the demon diversity is even higher. One part that feels kind of lame is how this arena doesn't have an exit. When it's over, you have to randomly walk over near this spot, where a Sarbomancubus will break the floor for you to leave. There is no indication this is what must happen for you to progress, so you might end up just walking around in circles until you randomly stumble onto this one spot. The music here is really good too. Both the stress and combat strings have an anxiety and ferocity to them. We reach the command center, grab the demonic crucible from the previous game, and Samuel Hayden. He is now battered and ruined. You might be wondering why that is. Good question, so am I. A red portal opens and... Hey, why couldn't we have done that? Also, here's a little discrepancy. The text prelude for Cultist Base says the Celestial Locator is giving you the locations of the Hell Priest. Plural, meaning we should know where the other one is. Back on the fortress, Uncle Sam conveniently happens to know exactly where the last Hell Priest is. He's not on Earth, but on Sentinel Prime. Whatever that is. Hey, if the Hell Priests don't need to be on Earth for the consumption to continue, then why are they here? Why not make themselves as hard to reach as possible? Fortunately, there happens to be a way there. Our new layout of fetch quests is get to the BFG 10K, shoot a hole into Mars, get down to the core, take a portal, which is supposedly down there, to Sentinel Prime, such that we can kill the Hell Priest and stop the invasion. On the way there, we get some more slapstick, scary Doom Guy comedy. The music here is pretty cool too, though it's a bit unimaginative. We have to face a lesser Doom Hunter in this level, and oh my god are they a pushover. Also, I hate it when bosses return as regular enemies, but they're not even the same enemy, but a weaker variant. The lesser Doom Hunter has half the health of the boss. You're not fucking fooling anyone that they have the same amount of health. It's patently obvious. If you want to show me how far I've come, pit me against the real deal. We reached the BFG, and I was gobsmacked when I saw this cutscene for the first time, but not for a good reason. Cutscene Doom Guy gets to fire the biggestest fucking gun the series has ever seen, and shatter a huge hole in Mars. This is such a cardinal sin in game design. Gabe Newell has a famous quote on this. Come on people, you can't show the player a really big bomb and not let them blow it up. Some animators in Texas had way more fun animating this than we had watching the cutscene. The amount of glee by which holes in Mars would have been blown if we got to do it would be like 10 times the current amount. Extremely conveniently, pieces of the UAC Mars base have been sent into space, and a teleporter here can get us to those flying chunks. Our goal now is to get to these... escape pods? Why are there escape pods on a land base? They're supposed to take us down into the core. To even get to those, Doomguy fires himself out of this cannon to a more distant section of the base. Now, first of all, what even was the point of this cutscene? It doesn't show any important plot development or event. The level designers could have just connected these two sections. So the reason this cutscene exists is to have another mega funny Doomguy moment. This is the point where I started getting sick of the game's focus on this totally cool and stoic character. Look, it really was funny, back in Doom 4, how he throws away the monitor or smashes these devices. He's basically a computer, whose only directive is to minimize human suffering, and he does whatever must be done to this end. He calculates the path of least resistance and follows. But it's been 1.5 games, and this shit's getting old. It's just not funny or novel anymore. At this point I know for a fact whatever cutscene Doomguy does, he is going to meet his goal. This scene, at the start, feels a bit pointless and out of character as well. Doomguy is supposed to be an android with a singular directive, and he breaks this directive by dragging this poor guy along to open this door. The only fucking purpose of this scene is to show how tough and badass he is. Why not just take the keycard off the guy? He wouldn't have said no. Also, here's another nitpick. Why is the BFG firing? Like, seriously, is it shattering other planets? Who is controlling it at this moment? Did nobody think about this? The levels in general are quite varied and pretty, and the setting feels wildly different in almost every stage. It deserves commendation, but the story feels far less important. Hardly anything happens really. It's just Doom Guy going down his to-do list. The only real character in this game is the Conmaker. She's the only real actor with any agency, who actually does something. Doom Guy is technically another, but he might as well be a robot. The story is just a bunch of excuses to take us to these cool settings, and that's a shame. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you cut out the pretense and overly long cutscenes, and maybe just get rid of the story altogether? Make the game a disconnected set of levels with only some scattered updates as it goes on, kind of like the originals, or related games. Seriously, what's the point of the story in this game? As far as the fights here go, they are similarly difficult as in the previous one, but for some reason last far shorter. It kind of takes away this feeling of endurance, and it doesn't really come back until the last level, which is a shame. There's a lot of backstory written around the game, but it mostly just feels like bloat. It doesn't set up anything, it's just random filler of little relevance, which you might as well forget when you're done reading, and nothing of value would have been lost. The only actually interesting and important details are the backstory of how Argent Noor has fallen, and that of Urdak. In the Ancient Gods 1, there's an actually consequential thread explaining how Hell came into existence. And in the second, well, we'll get to that. To be fair, this was also the case back in Doom 4, where the only parts that didn't feel like filler were the bits fleshing out the past of Argent Noor and the elemental wraiths. Also, it's slowly starting to irk me just how much content is simply written out in text. I mean, what happened to Show Don't Tell? Something you just write and leave in? Might as well have zero connection to the actual world, if it's not substantiated with something. These elements might have made for a better book, and the cutscenes for a better film than they did a video game. Well, we have now reached the only portal in existence to take us to Sentinel Prime. This level is a dump of backstory. We find out that the Doomslayer is the same person as Doom Guy from the original games. Back in Doom 64, he stayed to fight in Hell such that no demon could rise again. He fought for untold ages before somehow ending up right here. The Argenta civilization took him in as a slave knight. The demons eventually invaded here as well. Doom Guy rose through the ranks of the Night Sentinels and got captured in a cursed sarcophagus. Argent Noor fell to the Netherworld, Samuel Hayden retrieved the coffin, and then the events of Doom 4 played out. Now, unfortunately, this creates a bit of a mess. If the portal in Hebeth is the only way to reach this place, then how did he wind up there originally? If there is a way through Hell, then why didn't Doom Guy go to Hell and then access Sentinel Prime this way? It also suggests this specific location is in an entirely different realm than Exultia, Argent Noor, etc. So how can we even call it the same civilization? Anyway, this little reveal that Doom Guy is the same person throughout the games was quite predictable. Before release, Hugo said this game would reveal if the Doomslayer is the same guy. And this very moment I already knew that only two options were possible. Either they would explicitly confirm it to be true, or keep it vague and just say, well, if you look hard enough into it, you'll find the answer. There was absolutely no way in hell they would explicitly deny this notion, given this statement. It's time to fight the Gladiator. You'll quickly notice that this guy works quite similar to the Marauder. In Phase 1, he's hiding behind this massive shield, and occasionally peeking out to attack, which also gives you an opportunity for a counter. Timing your shot well will stagger him, and let you do a mini glory kill? I'm not sure how to call it. This dynamic isn't bad, I just wish it didn't come down to these predetermined animations again. This fight feels a bit more organic and demanding than the Marauder, as the Gladiator isn't going to let himself get manipulated as easily. It does feel like a proper back and forth, almost Dark Souls style, where you're trying to poke holes in the rock-solid defense. So that's basically all of Phase 1. In the cutscene, Doomguy decides to stab his shield instead of, killing the fucker for some reason. I like how only his right half is damaged, as that's where you've been shooting him. The slab of rock is now gone, and Phase 2 sees the gladiator transform into an aggressive bruiser. He still kind of retains a similar ability, where he spins the mace to deflect shots, and is vulnerable during the counterattack. But he only does that sometimes. Feels a bit pointless, as why would he need the shield if he can just do this? Anyway, I especially like this attack, where he locks you into a quadrant of the arena and sends out these flaming chains, jumping rope style. Otherwise, he dies a bit too fast for me to even comment anything else about this phase. The music here fits, but it's too monotonous. This is also probably where the metal choir is at its most prominent. I wish it was in more tracks, maybe even most. So we kill the Hell Priest and, for some reason, killing one specifically in this location takes away all of Doomguy's rights and he becomes a capital G gamer. I don't know why killing two of them earlier wasn't a problem, but here we are. Again, Vega opens a portal to this location for us to leave, so how couldn't we get here in the first place? The Khan Maker interferes and cuts power in our fortress. But the demonic crucible is a source of power in of itself, and allows us to resume our campaign. This is a bit disappointing. In Doom 4 we only knew a few things about this item. It could free the spirits of the elemental wraiths, it could become this energy sword, and Samuel Hayden hoped to use it for further exploitation of Argent energy. I was hoping the reason he wanted it was a bit more imaginative than just, it's another power source. The Khan Maker says she's going to unleash the Icon of Sin on Earth, as there's no other way to keep Argent energy flowing. She's another disappointment. Before release, it was clear that Urdak and its civilization were a sort of equivalent of a heaven world, but they seemed aligned against us rather than against the demons. I was hoping the reasons for that would be a bit more imaginative than just, the Khan wants Argent energy too. At this rate, Urdak might as well just be an extension of Hell, but with different aesthetics. So many story beats end up just being the most straightforward possible answer and explanation, like I'm watching a Marvel movie. So, we must go to Taras Nabad to retrieve the Slayer's own crucible to be able to stop the Icon of Sin. Fair enough. This level might be the most filler feeling and forgettable one for me of the lot. I'm not sure why. It just looks very similar to Exaltia, and doesn't really feel all that different, fight-wise. The arenas aren't really any harder than, say, in Mars Core. This level also introduces swimming sections, and they are as all swimming sections. Boring, tedious and pointless. They again couldn't help but give you a cutscene showing you exactly what just happened. The level is you traveling around, grabbing your crucible and reforging the sword. A crucible blade incapacitates a titan, which the Icon of Sin is. It would have saved us a trip if Doomguy hadn't forgotten to take this weapon with him eons ago. There's some lore dumping going on here, in the form of a flashback. The demons eventually attacked the Argenta as well, and Doomguy was already a high-ranking warrior among the Sentinels. Back in Doom 4, a Seraphim figure was talked of as having given our protagonist great power and speed, and in this flashback we can see this happening. He leads us to the Divinity Machine while spouting some Samuel Hayden lines, which, yeah, I told you it doesn't get better. The aforementioned conspiracy and betrayal followed this first battle. When we're done, we acquire a new power weapon. The Crucible holds 3 charges and can use one of them to immediately glory kill an enemy. This is a little problematic. Never before, while playing a game, have I been so concerned for some invisible and inscrutable algorithm to pick the right target for me. It is habitual to be disappointed that the Crucible decided to target the imp standing next to the Archvile. Now, I kind of get why they went this way. Melee combat in first-person games is often notoriously clunky and unsatisfying. But that doesn't excuse they didn't even try. This insta-kill button doesn't feel necessary to the combat. It feels like a cheap get-out-of-jail-free card. There is also no way to reliably recover those charges, just pickups in the world, much like BFG ammo. Necravol is our next destination. This is the last time we'll be on the fortress before the end of the game. We want to get to Urdak, to stop the Icon of Sin. But, to get there, we'll have to ride the energy wave of Argent, which is being sent up from the factory in Hell producing it. This section is split into two separate levels, and I'm not sure why. If combined together, they would have made for a level about the length of Cultist Space. Story-wise, Uncle Sam acts as a lore dump, and explains how Argent energy is made. Organisms killed by the demons have their souls transported to Hell, and in Necravol they're liquidated into energy. The remaining bodies will, over time, transform into more demons. It's explained that Argent is a combination of Hell and Sentinel energies. You might be seeing a problem here. Let's go back to Doom 4. At the end of the previous game, we've shut down the Well, what is supposed to be the source of Hell energy. The UAC collects this raw energy and refines it into Argent at their facility. We've dispelled the spirits of the elemental wraiths, from which the demons were siphoning what was called Hell energy at this stage. There is no more Hell energy, and this shut down the portal to Mars. Now, in Doom Eternal, we've learned of this new source of energy, that being human souls. I think at this point the nomenclature for them might have swapped. What Sam calls Hell energy must be the component made from humans, since it's got nothing to do with Sentinels. And Sentinel energy was what came from the Wraiths, as that's what the people of Argent worshipped. Now, regardless of which one is which, that doesn't change the fact that a key component is missing. There is no more Well. How is Argent still being manufactured? And if this is a retcon, then it's a shitty one, as it means we've accomplished absolutely nothing of significance back in Doom 4, other than obtaining the demonic crucible. Demons are still a threat, portals can still be opened, Argent is still being made. We've closed one portal on Mars, but now we've gone ahead and just fucking deleted Hell energy in of itself. The destruction of the Well was presented as a slam dunk win, but it's far from that. This is around the point in the game we'll start getting mastery tokens. They let you skip an already unlocked mastery challenge and get the mod fully upgraded. I get why they're here. This is around the point at the earliest where you'll be spending your last weapon upgrade points, but it might still take a fair amount of time to complete the challenge, so you'll end up with no more campaign to actually play around with them. It's a band-aid solution to a problem from the previous game, but it also doesn't solve the underlying issues of lackluster progression and exploration. You're only going to have up to half of the weapon mods equipped at any given time, so you're probably spending tokens on ones you're not even going to use. The levels themselves are fine, but they once again don't feel like a significant step up in difficulty. Only really the fight at the very top feels quite intense. The music is also pretty good, but only really the main riff feels inspired, and the rest, kind of soulless. The aesthetics in general are really sweet in this level. There's a point after which the hellish gothic architecture gives way to maker technology, and that feels like a new environment at this point in the game. Part 1 has these crusher traps, which insta-kill any enemy when you shoot the switch. Honestly, pretty well done gimmick. It would be tedious to lure every enemy here this way, so you're just fighting as normal, checking every once in a while if a fat boy happens to be located in the danger zone, and quickly shoot the switch. But for how powerful this is, I'm glad it doesn't return. Urdak is the Maker's homeworld. The art direction here is quite incredible. What I don't like is how weird some of the proper names in this game can sound. Urdak? What is that supposed to mean? Is this what the Makers call this place? This sounds like some random letters strung together to vaguely resemble a word. I wouldn't be surprised if Hugo Martin just thought of it in 20 seconds. This name doesn't symbolize anything, it doesn't evoke anything. What about Blood Punch? At least these words make some sense, but what is that even supposed to mean? Is this something that is just meant to sound edgy and cool and superhero? Why are these things called crucibles? Do you not know what a crucible is? This place is called Holt. Moreover, it's sometimes referred to as Equestrian Holt. Are you even checking the meaning of the words you're using, or just concerned with making them sound cool? So here's another weird story complication. The makers have a pact with the demons that neither can enter the world of the other. The Khan brought a dormant icon of sin to Urdak, and this doesn't break the pact for some reason. Moreover, how did this thing turn into this? Look, I can buy some magical interference. The betrayer's son was presumably humanoid, but brought back as this monster. Fair enough, hell corrupts and distorts, but you can't just pretend this giant object from Doom 4, specifically referenced in the Codex, did not exist, or was given a full body off-screen. At least invent some explanation as to what happened here. Moving on, this door welcomes us as a seraph. Which, I fucking told you it doesn't get better. There is no follow-up to this, it's just an unanswered question. If you want a conclusion, you're gonna have to invent one yourself. Now, you're gonna have to follow me here. I need to explain every detail so that you understand how little sense this whole thing is making. The makers are conveniently waiting for Doomguy to arrive and plunge that knife from before into this heart. The Khan exclaims they won't be able to control it, while doing absolutely nothing to stop Doomguy. Objection number 1. Why did destroying this heart actually wake up the Icon of Sin in a manner that they wouldn't be able to control? Objection number 2. Why is it that specifically destroying the heart is what ends up breaking the pact between heaven and hell? If the demon had awoken under the control of the makers, how would that change anything? You can invent some contrived explanations for all of this, but they are just weak speculation. None of this information is communicated to the player, so since the pact is broken, demons immediately invade. This level has some cool fights, but it again doesn't feel like the intensity has been increased from Necravol, especially since the Maker drones give so many resources that it's hard to be strapped for ammo or health. It's a long one though, as there's a lot of random small corridors containing fodder we've been fighting the entire game, that the creators absolutely positively needed us to go through. There's also these annoying unskippable cutscenes and elevator rides, which lock you in place. Who thought those were necessary? I shudder to think. The only explanation I will accept is there a camouflaged loading screen. Before we leave, the Khan Maker is our third boss fight, and it doesn't really make sense what we're doing. Uncle Sam says she's invulnerable when she's got that yellow orb in her chest. Okay, so we've got to attack her when she doesn't, right? Wrong! We must shoot her to deplete the health bar and then go in for a blood punch. What even is the point of this charade? I do not know. You gain a blood punch when she's incapacitated, so the only thing that can happen is the punch doesn't connect because she's got some weird invisible collision around her. This fight is janky but quite challenging, actually. You'll have to dodge projectiles and stay off the ground, as portions of the arena will become damaging. I often struggle to stay alive here, even though there's Maker drones all around. We've brought along Vega on this object, whom we will need to set up this huge portal for us to get back to Earth. But, for some reason, he needs to stay behind in Urdak. I guess he just forgot he can back himself up or something. He also says a line that actually has some story payoff later. While I'm on this topic, it's a bit annoying and almost amateurish how many foreshadowing and cryptic lines there are in the two new Dooms, which feel like they should be setting something up, but just end up leading nowhere. In the previous game, Olivia has this line.
You could not have saved them anyway.
If you do some hardcore mental gymnastics, you might suspect she's talking about the people of Argenta. But near the end, Vega has this line, and you cannot tell me this one's been followed up on. Eternal has a few such moments as well, most notably when we beat this boss. A voice without a name or title happens to stub their toe. Even after 2 DLC campaigns, we still don't know who this is. The music here is very unique and thematically appropriate, even though this main melody line is reused from Doom 4. But I felt like it struggled to inspire excitement or to stay memorable during the arena fights. The boss fight suffers from the Mick Gordon syndrome of somehow feeling less intense than the normal level music. I'm not sure why he does things this way, but it seems like it's got to be deliberate at this point. And now for the ultimate level, Final Sin. We've got all we need and now it's time to stop the big bad demon. This level setup is done in a blatantly videogamey way, where we're constantly in the vicinity of the icon, but for some reason we have to get through several arenas before we've earned enough rep to ride with him, and it decides to finally give us a crumb of attention. I really like this level. I'm not sure why this city doesn't look all that corrupted by the demons. It almost seems like people might have just lived here before the icon had arrived. Still, the vibes I get are of the end times. The arenas are properly tough and finally reach that climax I was talking about earlier, where they seem to just never end. Many of them are quite large, but the number of demons still manages to be super oppressive. The problem I have is that some absolute genius decided that the most climactic and appropriate music for the very final level of the game would be to use the exact same strands as from the very first level. I probably don't need to explain why this is a terrible decision. Now, I think I've got an explanation for this. You see, Final Sin wasn't always going to be the final level of the game. Hugo Martin said before release that the very final level in the game is a location you've never seen before in a Doom game. Does this sound like he's describing a random city on Earth? I think he was talking about Urdak. As a result, maybe they didn't have time to create a proper final music track for Final Sin. I've refrained from talking about this up until we've had an overview of all the levels, but it's a shame how utterly linear so many of them are. Hell on Earth, Taras Nabad, and this final level especially, are all basically a single line that twists and turns, with no options on your part as to where or how you want to go. Even levels like Cultist Base, which technically loop around on themselves, do so in such a scripted manner that you're not really unlocking new areas. It's more like driving on a slip road as part of a complicated interchange. It might twist and loop around on itself, but you can still only ever go one way. These weird platforms will only take you to exactly where your next destination is. Hey, here's a weird thought. What did we do such that this platform decided to take us to the end of the level? It's all done in a really scripted and non-organic way. The only level I can think of where you genuinely have some freedom is Urdak, where you can pick which one of 2 lanes you want to go down first. Even in Doom 4 we had levels like the Foundry or Argent Facility, which felt more like classic Doom levels. You can access almost all of it from the start, but there's a few doors which will only unlock once you've obtained the key or completed some objective. So it's time for the final boss fight. It had to be the Icon of Sin because Doom 1 and 4 had the Spider Mastermind, so Doom 2 and Eternal will both have the other one. And it's a bit of a disappointment. First of all, the visual design is just fucking lame. A gigantic human with a goat for a head, in some shitty armor. Even the Doom 2 design was more inspired and unique. The armor looks like a layer of metal over its skin rather than an actual armor. I don't know what that is supposed to represent. In the first arena, the demon is standing on one side and throwing some random punches flamethrowers temporarily, disabling parts of the arena, and summoning more demons. The problem with this trope is that it entirely invalidates projectile weapons, like the rocket launcher or BFG. It might seem like a non-issue as the enemy is so big, but it's actually really hard to hit it with those attacks. The BFG tendrils also just don't work. and will only damage exactly where it lands. The Icon of Sin has several body parts, and we must destroy the armor on each of them to pass this phase. For some reason, the flesh itself is invulnerable right now. The fight is pretty cool, as there's tons of dangerous demons around in the cramped spaces, so they're a big threat. You must balance damaging the boss with your own survival. The Crucible pickups actually respawn in this arena, so you can occasionally slice a big demon you just don't have time for. However, shooting the boss is really unsatisfying in both phases, and the whole package looks really stiff and unnatural. Once we've destroyed the armor, the demon will open a portal and let us follow to yet another rooftop. I don't know what the reasoning here is. This phase requires us to destroy each of the body parts corresponding to the armor sections from the previous phase. Shooting them makes this really weird sound, and finally, shattering them feels unsatisfying. It's kind of arbitrary what the sections of the monster even are, as there's this stomach or pelvis part which kind of looks like it's not part of the actual damageable section of the boss. Otherwise, it's more of the same. The arena is a bit bigger, but the icon has some new projectile attacks as well, and it can even rotate around the building and stand around each of the 4 sides. The fight feels like it takes a bit too long, and there's not much satisfaction from shooting the boss, but the challenge is unique and quite exciting. The only problem here is the music, which, again, feels very unique and has some really foreboding sounds, but lacks the oomph for what is supposed to be the climax of the game. And now we're done. As for the ending, there is none. No, really, the cutscene sees us finally take out our crucible and freeze the demon unconscious. I really like this visual of a bruised and battered icon, and this part where the head lands on the rooftop and slides off feels really meaty and satisfying. And then it just ends with another speech from King Novik, which doesn't actually say anything of substance, while Doomguy walks off somewhere. This might be one of the most nothing burger endings I've ever seen. I can't even call it bad because there is just nothing, which is bad in of itself. Also, I'm still butthurt over how they chose against using Mick Gordon's rendition of Into Sandus City, because it was too video gamey, as he says. The game with floating green 1-ups, the game with vials of water for health items, the game where headshotting a demon makes a loud pop sound. It'd easily have been the most kick-ass song in the entire game. I've got several mods for XCOM 2, which replace the music with other game soundtracks, including Doom Eternal. Meaning, every once in a while, when I complete a mission, I get to hear this fucking banger of a tune while my heroes get back to base. Every time this happens, I stop whatever I was planning on doing and just headbang until it ends. That is to say, not for very long. So, this concludes my analysis of the campaign in Doom Eternal. I think I've covered basically everything I had to say as I went along, so there's not much for me to add here. I've got positive and negative feelings about basically every aspect of this campaign, and I really lament how linear and boring many of the levels are. The story is such a hot mess that I don't even want to discuss the specifics again. But I am overall disappointed. Not really because it was worse than it was promising to be, but more because it was nothing more than what it was promising to be. If you had been following the pre-release media and hype, it felt like the story was going to be super fleshed out and complex. There were so many characters and locations. And the worst part is that there was nothing more. Each story beat only does the bare minimum it needs to move the story along. We basically knew 90% of the story before the game was even out. The music is a mixed bag, although even the worst songs are still very pleasant to listen to. I'll cover the DLC campaigns in further parts. Thanks for watching.